Good morning, world. Good morning, world. Good morning, humans. How often do you follow your intuition? Your what? My what? Your intuition. AKA, also known as that little voice inside. Sometimes it's a little voice, sometimes it's a little feeling telling you something's a bit off, or telling you to go in that direction or go back in that direction, get a step away, back away. That feeling or that little voice inside, which you actually know is there. But for many of us, I know for me, I ignored my inner voice, my intuition, my beautiful wisdom for many years. And there were times when I had more space where I would hear it more loudly. And I remember it would often be when I was walking Carlos, my dog. I'd be walking and I'd get like these messages, but I didn't really listen back then. Another time I really remember hearing my intuition more loudly, back in the days before I really started to work on myself deeply, was when I went on holidays, when I got away from all of the things, away from my busy life and away from being stuck on that hamster wheel of busyness. And I'd be on holidays and I'd get these beautiful insights about my life and what I wanted to change and what didn't feel aligned and all of these things. But then many times I'd go back to my real life. That's what I would have called it back then. Go back to my life and continue to ignore that beautiful inner wisdom that was always there for me. The next message you need, the guidance you're looking for, the answer you're looking for right now, guess where it is? Where is it? Where is it? It's right where you are. Right where you are at every moment, which is really cool. So I really wanted to share because yesterday, my intuition, I don't know what's going on with this bit of hair here. My intuition was really, it's kind of gone to another level. And, those of you who are working with me already, you'll know like the journey is you start to listen and you start to follow. What happens when you start to listen and then you follow? You start to build trust. Because then things work out. You're like, hey, that worked when I listened to that guidance. Hey, that worked when I listened to that guidance. Or it'd be like, hey, that didn't work when I listened to that guidance. And you'd be, but there was a lesson there. Because it's not always like bliss and harmony and amazing, the outcome. But it's always aligned. It's always of your highest. It may just be there's a lesson. Anyway, so my intuition has reached, I don't know, it seems like another, it's like the voice has changed. I was explaining it to my beautiful massage friend last night. It's like it's louder. And I guess what happens, right, is when you start listening to it, you can't not listen to it. You're so tuned into it, like you can't not listen to it. And so yesterday, some of you may have caught my live, which, it's a big day for myself and my family yesterday. And but I just had this nudge, do a live, share, get online, share your message. But my mind, logically, I didn't have like some key points or a message. I wasn't sure what I wanted to say. And I kind of wanted to get to that point before I jumped on. However, I didn't get to that point, but that voice just got louder and louder and louder. So what did I do? I did it. I followed it. I listened because I know. And to be honest, once you get to this point, you really don't have any other choice. The push is so loud that you actually can't function without listening to it. So that's what happens as you build that trust with yourself, right? Which is pretty cool. Anyway, so I jumped on live and afterwards I'm like, I don't know if that messaging was fabulous. I spoke my truth. I allowed the words to come through me. I trusted that it would be received. And, later yesterday, I found out that it touched someone who was very close to my brother and hadn't really been ready to allow himself to grieve. And, so it made a difference in his life. And, if that live touches one person's life, then to me, it is totally worth it. And, there's a beautiful lesson in that about trusting your guidance. And even if maybe you don't feel ready or you don't understand why you're being directed to go that way, or sometimes it's not really logical, the more that you trust it, the more that you will see the evidence over and over and over again of how aligned it is and what happens when you follow it. It's just, it's like dominoes, like all falling perfectly down. And then there was another thing that happened yesterday. Again, it's like a strong nudge. It's really, and it's the same today. So interesting. So I was having a massage, as I said, amazing massage. If anyone wants a recommendation and they're in Brisbane, she is incredible. And anyway, as I'm like lying there, my intuition was showing me something, and I'm like, okay, well, just clear it out. It was an energetic thing, and I'm like, okay, you know what to do, just clear it. And I'm like trying to clear it, and then I kept getting the message, tell her about it. I'm like, I don't need to tell her about it. I know how to just clear it. It's like, no, tell her about it. I'm like, no, I don't really want to tell her about that. Like, I don't want her to think anything, all this. This is logic. This is my mind going, no, you don't need to tell her about that. And then it's like, tell her about it. I'm like, just clear it. No, tell her about it. So anyway, I started giggling on the table, and we're pretty close. So I told her that whole conversation with my head and my guidance, and told her about what the thing was. And then it wasn't actually that thing. So the thing that I told her about, that my guidance said you need to speak that out loud, it wasn't that, but it was the conversation that immediately opened up between her and I. And funny enough, the conversation that opened up in that moment between her and I was all about trusting your intuition. Because often things will happen, and then your mind goes, oh, maybe that was just a coincidence, or maybe that wasn't real. Did I really see that? Did I really experience that? And you kind of just like brush it off, because we haven't been taught to trust our inner guidance. Like, imagine that. Imagine if we were taught that at schools. Oh, imagine if we were taught at school how to connect to our own human being and tune into our guidance and our higher self. Imagine. Anyway, we won't go down that path. We can teach our kids, which is what I'm doing. I'm sure many of you are as well. So anyway, it wasn't the thing that I was being pushed to speak out loud. It wasn't actually about that. It was about the conversation that flowed on from that. Because if I hadn't have said that, she wouldn't have then said these other things, and it all opened up a massive, beautiful awakening, I would call it. So yeah, I really wanted to share that with you. Your guidance, that inner voice, isn't always logical. It doesn't always make sense. And often, we like to know why. But why should I do that? Or, but how am I going to do that? Like, really, like, how will I even do that? How will I make that work? How will I make that successful? How will I find the money for that, right? It's a big one, right? I follow my guidance. I invest money in programs and in myself and in my education and in serving humanity. Money I don't have, over and over and over and over again, because I trust it. So you may not always know why. You may not always know how. However, I recommend you follow it. I recommend you can start with little things. It doesn't have to be investing $20,000. It can be a little message that you receive, listening to it, following it, and then noticing the outcome. Another little message. Okay, being curious, let me follow that. Let me listen, okay, let me follow it, and let me observe, let me witness the outcome. And just by doing that, little step by step by step, then you'll start to build that trust with, guess who? You! I don't know, I just figure it's probably a good thing to trust yourself. Anyway, we could just get back to work and get busy on my emails or Facebook, or I am on Facebook, or my, I don't know, whatever the hell else we think is a priority. Or we could tune into our own being and connect to our guidance. What do you reckon? All right, I'm going to sign off now. Have a beautiful day, everybody.